You're either for freedom of speech or you aren't. There is no middle ground. Freedom of speech has never been for popular speech, and there's no need to support people saying or expressing opinions that support establishment status quo or socially enforced morals. You're either for people voicing opinions that you hold contemptible or you are not for freedom of speech. Sadly, even the idea of freedom of speech is now being politicized as a right-left issue, where, for legitimate concerns and reasons, many on the right are becoming wary of large tech monopolies. Choosing who is and who is not allowed to speak and what our shared social values are, for many that do not agree with these ideals or the unaccountable Silicon Valley companies that enforce them, their voices are being silenced relentlessly, pathologically, and ruthlessly, and this cannot end well. This video is kindly sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends, a game with an amazing storyline and awesome 3D graphics, including 400 champions and giant boss fights. The game is free to play and has one of the highest ratings based on hundreds of thousands of reviews, and for that reason it's growing fast, and now is the best time to join. See the description for links that will instantly give you 50,000 in silver and a free epic champion as part of the new player program to start you on your journey. Good luck and thanks for your support, and remember, download the game and start now.
Because you want a child. The reason why she wants a child is because when she was a baby, they gave her a little buddy to put along, right, with a cute little baby in, yeah? But what they should have done when she was a child is given the child maybe a wheelchair with an old person in it, right? Because any child that this woman is going to have is likely to grow old, and possibly is going to get cancer, or crippled, or God knows what else. That's what's going to happen to this child, and the only reason she is given for having a child is because she wants one. That's not a good reason to have a child, just because you want something. Surely, before you bring more human life here, maybe you should think a little bit deeper as to why you should do that. There are already 7.5 billion people.
At Speaker's Corner, speakers here may talk about any subject as long as the police consider their speeches lawful, and in the UK, what is deemed lawful is an ever-shrinking set of ideas. The corner was frequented by the likes of Karl Marx, Vladimir Lenin, and George Orwell, and it's not what Speaker's Corner actually is, but what it represents, that people should have the right to say what they want in public regardless of the content and whether it offends the listener or not. Galileo and his message was not popular with the establishment when he spoke, and neither was Martin Luther King Jr., but they, like countless others, had ideas that when disseminated overturned the existing social and cultural paradigms. It is the marketplace of ideas that has for centuries sorted out good ideas from bad. But in the 21st century, we are losing this hard-won right for two simple reasons. First, it serves the interests of the financial cartels to see people, communities, and nations as nothing more than interchangeable cogs or widgets within a hive-like structure. And two, an entire generation of people have been influenced and inculcated with ideological conditioning that renders them both helpless to deal with the external world, but at the same time endlessly offended by it.
President of the United States of America, Donald
I have spoken in detail on the moral shift taking place within much of the millennial generation. Links to a more thorough explanation of the current transition to victimhood culture can be found in the description. But suffice it to say, because the highest moral status currently now is conferred to victims, there is now an ever-increasing incentive to publicize personal, social, and societal grievances. When in earlier days one might challenge another to a duel or in the 20th century file a lawsuit, The current cult of victimhood now encourages people to appeal to others to recognize their victim status and look for support on social media for the smallest of perceived slights. Think of the ludicrous idea of microaggressions, that is, taking offense from someone when offense was not even intended. And this is the disturbing and pathological place we find ourselves in. Much of the media today is controlled by multinational corporations that in turn are owned by financial cartels and conglomerates that have a vested interest in keeping people uninformed, misinformed, and ill-informed. A distracted population is one that is much easier to herd and to control. The journalists working in much of these outlets currently spewing out such drivel as microaggressions, as well as clickbait outfits like Vice and the Huffington Post, as well as Vox, well, they are little more than activists pushing for ever more indignation, outrage, and victimhood culture at this point. And it works. The recent social media temper tantrum by a Vox activist / journalist lamenting, howling, and squealing his victimhood on YouTube at the hands of another independent creator was successful, sadly, in ushering in another round of censorship, demonetization, and deplatforming. It's important to understand that social media is perhaps one of the most destabilizing forces ever created, and that's why it has to be censored. Never mind that traditional outlets like CNN, the BBC, and the New York Times long ago stopped allowing comments on the news they present, as time after time after time after time, people voiced their disapproval of their slant, pandering, or media trickery otherwise, and the fact that others could see that they weren't alone in their opinions forced these gatekeepers to forever silence their audience in the age of the internet. Social media toppled the paradigm of one speaking to many, as in newspapers, radio, and television, and to the horror and dismay of many within the establishment, it gave everyone a voice. And this is why, via the cheerleading of the likes of Mike Stuckberry, who never saw a case of censorship, demonetization, and deplatforming he didn't revel in, well, he was left in shock when the latest round of censorship didn't go the way he thought it would. This is important because fanatics such as the radical ideologue Becca Everyone I Disagree With is a Nazi Lewis, who is infamous for her working to fit her conclusions-based style of data interpretation and play acting as a serious researcher, constantly seem to be popping up whenever calls for censorship are made, and they are being made constantly. Again, it is the activists that masquerade as journalists and researchers at outlets such as the New York Times and The Guardian that have long since become virtually indistinguishable from tabloids like Vice and Vox, which are now the standard bearers of censorship. There are and will be very serious and unintended consequences that arise when censorship is being directed at only one side of the cultural and social argument. You may silence voices, but the concerns and arguments they have do not go away. The collective Western world currently is undergoing a great civilizational experiment that is radically transforming it both demographically and culturally, while at the same time inverting its millennia-old moral compass in the short span of a single lifetime. And now to raise concerns, voice opinions, or even speak about this transformation of our homes is to be labeled subversive by these Marxist activist journalists. Those that do are silenced, and the other side that wants no debate, no discussion, and no platforming cheers in squealing delight. These are not journalists. These are not researchers. These are fanatical ideologues. Full stop. And why would they want an intellectual exchange? Everything within victimhood culture is about lowering the moral status of those that can be identified as oppressors, as it raises the moral status of the victims. And victimhood and this ideology behind it is producing ever more exotic and interesting ways to create victim classes. This is why honor culture, which is so quick to take offense, is now being merged with dignity culture, looking for an external arbiter to settle any offense, whether intended or not. Long gone are the days when disputes were settled between those involved, as well as learning to ignore those that intentionally offend. Grievance-based conflicts are creating a massive shift in moral culture. Thus, the constant appeal to authority to recognize victimhood and silence those that are of lower moral status within this hierarchy. And we all know who is the lowest of the low in this new emergent victimhood culture. This is about dominance, pure and simple. Don't kid yourself. It will, of course, also have many unintended consequences. This is a phrase I want you to remember, as it is one I think you will be hearing more of in the coming weeks and months. Social media muzzling millions will not make ideas go away. What it will do is what it has always done, lead to more polarization and more radicalization and more social discord at the very time when the West is undergoing a transformation whose only historical example that could be seen as similar is one of a nation having been defeated and conquered through warfare. And all of this suppression is being spurred on by global finance and stupidly and idiotically cheered on by the useful idiots who will in time realize just what tools they very much are. But by that point, it will be probably too late, as the damage will already have been done, and they too will have been silenced by the censorship they cheer for today. Thanks for watching this video. If you like this kind of material, please consider subscribing. Also remember to download, raid Shadow Legends, and support this channel. Thanks as always, and I'll see you next time.